Where does this guy get this footage? I mean, Mr. Corbell. Where is the footage coming from? I mean, I clearly he has some connection. Um, I don't know. I don't know, but I guess the more important question is, does it actually amount to anything? And it seems like we keep getting these kind of weird military video drops, but not a lot of explanation. And I get it. You want to protect your sources or whatever. But I wonder where this is coming from. There are rumors of um, Matt Brown, Matthew Brown, assisting the UAP task force and where to look for these files. And we know David Grush has been assisting the UAP task force. Are they both finding this stuff possibly and getting it pushed out? I don't know, but it's very interesting. I think another problem is when you release videos like that and there's not a lot of provenance, it's hard to get all of the data and then analyze it and see if it actually means anything, because we know like there are so many things in our sky. If you haven't gone down the rabbit hole, I'll make it quick and easy for you. The military and companies that contract with our military have the capability to make things that absolutely, if you didn't know better, look like a UFO. How far back does that go? I don't know if we'll ever find out. Was it actually reverse engineered technology, or was it just our best and brightest figuring out different ways to use physics, propulsion, fields, magnetic fields that just isn't available to the rest of the public because maybe it's just too dangerous? I don't know. And so I know that the longer I research this and the longer I look into this stuff, the less and less impressive those video drops become. It's kind of like, oh, okay, you caught something weird in the sky. Whatever. There's all kinds of weird shit in the sky. So, yeah. At any rate, Francis, I see you. What's up, buddy? Glad to see you here. Always enjoy your company. For the rest of you, if you're new, you're watching the Gabriel Speaks podcast, make sure and hit like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. That really helps a lot. This is our UFO news update show. So we're going to get into some UFO updates here. And I want to start out with Mr. Dr. Stephen Greer. So Dr. Stephen Greer has had multiple, non-official UFO hearings. For the last 20 years, he's had them. Good friend of the show, Eric Hecker, spoke at one of them, where Michael Herrera spoke, one of the more recent ones. I think that was 2020. And he has literally terabytes of data. And he has gone to these task force folks and he has said, talk to these whistleblowers. Here's a whole list. These are the folks you need to talk to. But they don't. And I think that's interesting that Dr. Stephen Greer is pointing that out. He gets into what we're actually seeing versus the narrative. And if there's one thing about Dr. Stephen Greer is that he has a firm belief that there is this global cabal that's controlling things that are more powerful than any government. And what was almost made the hair rise on the back of my neck was when Matthew Brown came out and said something similar. And as far as I know, there's zero connection between Matthew Brown and Stephen Greer. With all this disclosure stuff going on in the Capitol, is it real? We've seen hearings like this since the 60s, and it seems to be kind of the same playbook every time. So I'm going to play some first is going to be a highlight of some recent podcasts Mr. Greer's done, Dr. Greer's done. And then he has his own podcast now, which I think is awesome. And he dropped a couple bits of really interesting information in this podcast. So we're going to get into that. Later, we're going to get into, boy, NASA has got some shit they have got to clean up, right? They're getting reports of issues with this Artemis program. We're going to get into that. They're having issues with the government wanting them to reassess what they're going to do with the ISS. That's going to absolutely cause a whole new project and level of work to be done. So we're going to talk about that as well. And then we're going to go over, after we finish with this Greer video, we're going to go over the memo, letter, whatever you want to call it, that Dr. Stephen Greer actually sent to President Trump. All right. Here is Dr. Stephen Greer.
In an aggressive military and corporate way to simply get more and more of their stuff, their goodies, their technology, which is what all the billionaires want, right? Because they only think one way. How do I become a trillionaire if I'm a billionaire? That's all they care about. These civilizations out in space are absolutely fed up with that. And let me be clear about this. This is a warning and it is a threat. If we stay on that path much longer, the dangers to peaceful civilizations out in space and other transdimensional space-based civilizations is that it is untenable. So we're at a crisis and we have to fix it. And the way we're going to fix it is to stand down completely those aggressive weapon systems. Now, one of the executive orders that I have recommended to the incoming president and the Congress is an immediate cessation of the use of those systems that target, bring down these craft through a forced effort as opposed to peaceful contact. So we need to take that sword.
And that's something Dr. Stephen Greer has been saying for quite a while, is the fact that we have a program that lures these things in and then essentially shoots them down. We have no knowledge if there's life inside or if they're considering the life that may be inside. We just don't know. But there's been a lot of documentation and a lot of witness accounts that have come out and said we do have a program designed to lure these things in and try to catch them, try to shoot them down. I don't think that's a nice way to greet your intergalactic neighbors.
And all those tools they have, but turn it into this plowshare of open, peaceful contact without the ulterior, selfish motive of let's steal and reverse engineer more of their tech. We've already done that. It's been done for 70, 80 years. We don't need to recreate that wheel. We need to disclose the technologies that already are existing, that are to be used peacefully, not the things that fly, but the energy generation. That intervention externally by NHI is a worst case scenario, the very worst. So beginning in the late 50s and early 60s, once we mastered gravity control and had our own ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles, reverse engineered man-made craft, And we started doing the stagecraft, as it's called, of mutilations and abductions, blowing up villages in Africa and South America. Everything that we've disclosed about this, it has caused the human consciousness to be predisposed towards the ETs being a malevolent force coming to invade us. Angels nor demons need flying saucers.
That's right.
Right. So people, because all this different phenomena, plural, extra dimensional, other dimensions, NHIET.
Neither angels nor demons need a UFO. It's a valid point.
It all gets mixed together. But the CIA and other people who are players in this want that confusion. And in that confusion, they can drive their narrative. So, and that narrative leads to what? World War III. It leads to an interplanetary conflict. And that is an extinction level event by any measure. When you're not talking about nuclear weapons, we're talking about our species trying to fight another. And instantly, all these systems can be shut down. People have no idea what those capabilities are. It's, people have looked at too much science fiction. This is not Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever. Leave that in Hollywood, all right, in someone's basement, where they fabricate all this nonsense. If you understand a little bit about those capabilities, it'd be point, set, match in a fraction of a second. So that's not going to happen that way. What's more likely, however, is that we would then trigger our own man-made craft and creatures that are man-made.
Now, that part creeps me out a little bit. Craft, okay. Creatures? What do you mean creatures? So I found a clip in this podcast where Dr. Greer expands on that a little bit. And that's coming up here in just a minute or two. But yes, he says there is a technology that these powers that be have that can literally either bring in interdimensional creatures to our reality or mess with people's heads to where they think they're seeing something like this, which is terrifying. And when you think about all the accounts that people have had, those dirt reports at Skinwalker Ranch, you have to wonder, is there some truth to this? And I think there might be.
To engage in all kinds of violent activity. And this they're planning to do anyway. See, this is the other problem. The long-term plan has been to take all these fleets of man-made UFOs. Because trillions of dollars, and Lockheed Skunk Works and Northrop Grumman and Raytheon and SAIC and Booz Allen Hamilton and EG&G, all these big corporate contractors for these covert NHI retrieval craft operations.
And of course, people know that we've been working for 2 or 3 years with a law enforcement task force that is researching the criminal aspects of this transnational criminal organization, or TINCO, that's running the legacy UFO programs. There has been corruption through people who are operatives within the media world and within the internet world to suppress information, but also to alter the truth about very specific areas. For example, this task force and very senior government folks now in the intelligence community understand that we have these UFOs, and this is what has been covered up by people like Elizondo and others for a very long time. There were members of Congress who told me very specifically they were warned away from looking into any of the human tech.
I just love that he's still calling Luis Elizondo out. Listen, y'all, Stephen Greer was on to Luis Elizondo from the gate. I mean, from the gate. I don't know how, but he knew this guy was not good news.
because they could get into a lot of trouble. Well, the reason they're diverting people like the president, members of these oversight committees in Congress from this is because those technologies have been used in criminal enterprises ranging from kidnapping and abductions to wet work murders to drug and arms running and everything else. This whole thing that happened with the Tic Tac.
It's not a fucking joke, y'all. This is why I hate when people get on my case for saying whoever ran these legacy programs need to be held accountable. Well, they're never going to talk if we don't give them amnesty. Really? You want to give people that did this to citizens amnesty? And non-citizens, apparently. I don't think so. I'm not down with it.
Where we immediately identified it as an object that had been built a long time ago and had been deployed. And now we have multiple whistleblowers ranging from Green Berets to Marines who've seen it deployed in the field as a man-made object. But of course, it was presented as an alien threat or a Chinese threat or what have you.
Now, he was just talking about the Tic Tac. We have other witnesses that have said they've seen it deployed in the field now.
And this sort of gaslighting and deceiving of people at the senior levels of national security and military is treasonous and a crime. The bigger problem is that there's a lock on the internet, major podcasts, major mainstream media, left, right, center, global, on the false narrative.
That's why y'all are fine getting your info here, because I'm not one of those major podcasts. Right? Like, we're going to keep it real here.
Narrative of the world's going to be attacked by aliens, and that if you don't think they're alien, they're agents of the devil or whatever it is, whatever narrative that where they can hit people's hot buttons of fear. Let's not forget, we live in a democracy, which, as Winston Churchill said, is the worst form of all government except all others. And it means we have politicians who are slaves to public opinion. But in this case, the public opinion, whether it be internet, podcasts, the mainstream media, what have you, is corrupted and influenced by this narrative and the operatives for that narrative, who are part of a criminal conspiracy. Let me put down a marker here. The people doing that, I have made very clear, are not freelancers. They are NOCs, non-official covers, who are operatives carrying a specific task.
Now, what he's saying there is that basically, if these folks are flooding social media with their narrative, that's not the natural grassroots spread of belief and information, right? That's people going out there and trying to plant all these seeds and hoping some of them grow. And it's something he's seen since he's been doing this in the 90s. And he's not a fan, I don't think, of a lot of these folks in the current disclosure movement, because disclosure is a joke. Disclosure is on you. The government is not going to give it to you. Disclosure means you need to go out and find it out for yourself. You can't ask the government to do this for you. Because even if, let's say, Trump comes out tomorrow and says, okay, it's real. Everything you've been reading in those files, those declassified files that have been out for 30, 40, 50 years. Yep, it's true. Then what? What's that going to do for you? What does that mean for you? What does that mean for us as a country? What does it mean for this planet? Is anybody thinking about what comes next? This is a crazy story right here. This is Dr. Greer went out to dinner with Steven Spielberg's son and learned a really interesting tidbit of information.
A few years ago, it may have been 10 years ago, I was in Santa Monica and I had dinner, a very long dinner with Steven Spielberg's son, Max Spielberg, and a very nice young man. And we got into this issue rather deeply. And he told me about how, of course, Steven Spielberg had done Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was kind of beautiful, and the movie E.T., which was very sweet. But after that, he got targeted with an electronic warfare system where they had a home invasion of fake aliens that was very negative and very scary, and moved Spielberg over into that camp. Mm-hmm. Now, I told Max Spielberg, you need to tell your father this. He said, well, you don't think he would believe it because it sounds so outrageous. I said, yes, because the real truth is outrageous and unbelievable, but it's true. So one time when we were...
That is wild. And unfortunately, not the first time we've heard, not even close to the first time we've heard about not the alien species or extraterrestrials or non-human intelligence, whatever you want to call them, abducting people, but actually some type of ultra secret CIA program to make you think that you've been abducted. So Dr. Greer hears this from Steven Spielberg's son. He says, look, man, you got to tell your dad this is some bullshit. He was making movies about NHI being friendly with humans. And then after this instance, the NHI takes kind of more of an aggressive tone. One movie people don't talk about a lot, Super 8. You had a essentially escaped NHI. It was kidnapping people, terrifying people. I mean, ultimately, because it just wanted to go home. But not quite the same journey that E.T. took. Way more scary. And now we have Disclosure Day coming out, which honestly doesn't look too much like a happy interaction to me. I don't know. Maybe it is. To me, this is even crazier. Dr. Greer tells us about an event with one of these said creatures that he was a part of.
A Joshua Tree, we had some weird, almost like Stranger Thing creature unleashed on people on our team at a house that I wasn't staying at, that came to the window and jumped on the roof and scared the hell out of the people in that house.
Right.
If those folks had not learned from me that the covert, kind of Nazis that have these technologies have the ability to do that and to scare people, they would have thought it was an alien. And for years in the 90s, when I learned about what these technologies were, I called them electronic black magic. It'd be like as if you could, a sorcerer doing some scary thing, right? But doing it through very high-tech electronics that have resulted from studying advanced extraterrestrial trans-dimensional systems. You can pop things in from another dimension. I remember in 1994, for example, having a very long meeting, 3 or 4 hours, with the Crown Prince of Liechtenstein, Hans Adam von Liechtenstein. And he explained to me about how his brother, Prince Albert, had been abducted out of the castle in Liechtenstein. And of course, everything he described was a classic CIA PSYOP abduction.
Right.
But it caused he and his brother to hate the aliens, and for him then to fund the mutilation cults and the abduction cults and the UFO researchers to push the evil alien narrative into the public. And it wasn't because he was a bad man. It's because he had been literally terrified and brainwashed by these operations. Now, the only...
Like, that's the thing. They're good people. But good people can be manipulated and kind of fucked with until they make decisions they wouldn't typically make. Both Jim Semivan, who claims he's CIA, was CIA, and John Ramirez, who we've confirmed was CIA, both claim to have been abducted. Semivan is out on podcasts essentially telling people to be afraid. And John Ramirez is out on podcasts basically telling people to be afraid and something's coming in 2027. They were both abducted. And I would imagine if something takes you out of your castle, your home, and prods and pokes and messes with you, I probably wouldn't have a very high opinion of them either. So if this is some human operation, you want to give that amnesty? I don't. It's sad, man. It's fucked up. Taking people out of their house and home, messing with them. I mean, in the worst kind of ways. Fear. Crazy. All right, let's listen to his thoughts on this current disclosure push.
The question is, how does this come out? And if it comes out a la, the sky is falling and the aliens are invasion, or worse, they're agents of Satan, the human future is absolutely in peril. One of the things, if you look at this historically, the people who want to keep endless war going are very clever at doing it. How do we regard this? How do we view this entire issue? And if we view it as this existential threat to our being, right? And we respond that way through fear and aggression and militarization of it, it's the end of civilization as we know it. I mean, it's catastrophic. However, at the best, what you find is that neither Ms. Luna at the House Oversight Committee, who is the chair of that task force that's been holding these non-hearing hearings, but also the UFO subculture has sanitized that information from any material going out. And I've learned from a member of the House Oversight Committee that he and multiple others were approached by some of those operatives like Elizondo and some of the others, and told, do not discuss the man-made technologies because that is how you will get killed, and that is too dangerous, and stay away from it. And I want to be crystal clear on this, is at the heart of the cover-up and the heart of most things UFO since the late 50s has the minor part of it that people see and experience is the ET or non-human intelligence, NHI part. The majority of it is actually man-made psyops and man-made operations. That is a very big deal, because that is where you really begin to be able to connect the criminal aspects of what they euphemistically call the legacy programs. Don't you love the terms legacy? Well, what they're really talking about, criminal, unconstitutional, and treasonous programs that have gone wild since the late 50s. Know that we're playing a very long game here. This has been a 35-year enterprise on my part. Is coming to a head, and that's I'll just say it's well in hand. So one way or another, all this is going to come out in the next year or two, maybe in the next 6 months.
Wow. I mean, so much there, right? We've got Spielberg, the victim of a so-called abduction. But Dr. Greer believes that what that was a CIA operation. And really that the CIA is using these operations to kind of, I think they're using them for a lot of different reasons. But one of the reasons is to get people to kind of turn negative on whatever this NHI or NHIs are. If you have a negative viewpoint, you're going to be afraid. You're going to be quicker to turn to the government for a resolution, for defense, for answers. And so I can see how that could be a thing. This was the memorandum. Now, we heard about this when it came out. If you've already gone through this, apologies. We're going to check it out real quick. But this was a memorandum that Stephen Greer sent to President Donald Trump. It says, since the 1950s, the UFO UAP subject has been handled by a corrupt, deep state, transnational organization whose power has grown to a level that is an imminent threat to national security and international peace and security. This organization is a hybrid of unconstitutional deep state and government compartmented operations and corporate special projects. It has reverse engineered non-human intelligence craft and is operating man-made advanced technologies at parity with NHI technologies. These human technologies are currently being used in a number of criminal operations, including assassinations, abductions, human, drug, weapons trafficking, embezzlement of U.S. government funds, acts of treason, and have the capability to simulate a fake alien attack at any moment. I have debriefed over 700 government and corporate whistleblowers over the past 35 years and have documented their information in the briefing document provided to your staff. The following executive orders are urgently needed. Explicit whistleblower protection specifying both legal amnesty and personal security. And we know Tim Burchett's UAP Whistleblower Protection Act is still sitting in a pending status. 2, an executive order authorizing a TS-SCI SAP with significant funding currently configured under law enforcement to stand down these illegal operations, and especially the illegal use of electromagnetic pulse weapons currently being used against NHI craft as these actions imperil the future of humanity. 3, an executive order requiring all such UFO UAP operations to be fully disclosed within 6 months, or those responsible will be vigorously prosecuted. 5, an executive order authorizing the review. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped 4. An executive order to authorize an advanced diplomatic team to make peaceful contact with the NHI civilizations. Now we're at 5. An executive order authorizing the review and release of advanced technology held by this criminal organization that would create total energy independence for the U.S. and we begin a new energy economy with which the U.S. would lead the world economically. Please feel free to contact me at any time. I am the world's leading expert on this subject. There is not a distant second. I will provide any assistance, advice, and evidence that you and your administration require. Respectfully yours, Stephen M. Greer, MD. If there's one thing we can say about Dr. Greer, he believes this through and through. He's coming out with a video soon about CE5 contact. He gets into that a little bit on that podcast where he's just going to make like an hour. I think it's just a little over an hour long video about CE5. And the reason he's doing that is because he's kind of come to the conclusion again that we can't trust the government for disclosure. We can't trust them to be some kind of trusted intermediary between us as people and this other intelligence. It'd be like having, I don't know, the president telling you what you can and can't pray about. It's just weird. So this issue of attacking UFOs, bringing them down, collecting them, and trying to reverse engineer them, if that is indeed the case, is that how you want them thinking of you? Welcome to Earth. Boom. Is that what you want for your first communication with NHI? I don't think so. That's not what I would envision. I would envision a hopeful, peaceful, diplomatic greeting. Not shooting down your craft and stealing your shit. Crazy. All right. There was some very interesting news that came up for NASA. There's this house group that is the house group, I think it's like aerospace and technology or science, and I think maybe science and technology. But it had been the plan to splash the ISS into the Pacific Ocean at the end of her utility for years and years and years and years. It's just no way. It's not worth the cost. It's not worth the investment in time. The materials aren't worth it to try and keep this thing going. And this house group had a little surprise for NASA. They said, nah, we actually want you to go back and make sure. Why don't we make sure we got to put this thing into the Pacific Ocean without saving any of it? I mean, we're not even going to recycle the dials, the switches, the cables. We're just going to send this whole thing into the ocean. We've invested billions, maybe even over $1 trillion at this point, into it and operations involving it. We're going to watch the actual session where this comes up. And then what they're not talking about in the news, we're going to look at the bill that didn't get passed that NASA requested. And I think you'll be a little surprised at what didn't pass.
The International Space Station is one of the most complex engineering achievements in human history. It represents more than 3 decades of international collaboration and investment by U.S. taxpayers, estimated at well over $100 billion. Current plans call for the station to be orbited at the end of its service life in 2030. This amendment does not seek to change that policy. Instead, it asks a straightforward question. Before we permanently dispose of an asset of this magnitude, should we fully understand whether it's viable to preserve it in orbit for potential use by future generations? This amendment directs NASA to conduct a study on whether it would be feasible to safely move the station following its retirement in just a few short years to a higher, stable orbital storage location. It also directs the agency to examine the costs and risks of storing the station in orbit, including risks to other space assets and the potential for uncontrolled reentry into Earth's atmosphere. Importantly, this amendment does not mandate such a relocation, nor does it authorize construction, funding, or execution of any such plan. It simply ensures that Congress receives a rigorous fact-based analysis so that future decisions involving the ISS are informed by scientific reality. At a time when we're thinking seriously about sustainability in space, this amendment protects taxpayer investments and ensures that we fully understand our options before an irreplaceable asset is permanently retired. Thank you, and I yield back.
Questions on the adoption of Whiteside's Amendment number 36. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is adopted.
This committee.
Okay, so it passes. We're going to look into this ISS thing, running it into the Pacific Ocean. We're going to force NASA to go in and see if there's anything we can scrap, if there's anything of use from the space station itself, or maybe the entire module itself, could be useful, could at least be saved. I mean, I would rather see it like in a museum than the bottom of the ocean. At worst, we spent trillions of dollars. You tell me we can't retrieve it? Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not a aerospace engineer, so I don't know. But it just seems like quite a waste, and I see why that bill passed. Now, more surprisingly, what did not pass is NASA coming to this group and saying, hey, we understand that DoD has this unmanned aerial vehicle detection technology, and we want it for our launches. We don't need a deterrence method. We don't need a method to take them down. We just simply, all we want is whatever technology y'all are using to detect these things so that we can make sure when we go to launch, there's no drones in the area. Seems like a pretty common sense request, right? Maybe not.
Bats above its weight time and time again. I mean, we're passing major bills like CHIPS and Science. We're doing this incredible reauthorization, and a lot of times we have to pick up the slack of other committees, particularly on critical areas that are overlooked. Our friends at NASA have reached out to us about this challenge with unmanned aircraft systems that is leading to drones that are coming to the NASA facilities. This is not a rare thing. We have growing threats to astronaut safety, launch operations, and some of the most sensitive space technology. In 2024, there were 415 drone incursions in the NASA airspace. In 2025, that number rose to 496, a nearly 20% increase. We've had more than 900 in 2 years. Okay, this is a systems vulnerability. Our friends at NASA have asked us to achieve the ability to detect and monitor these UASs. They're not asking for defense capabilities. They're not asking to replace law enforcement. But my goodness, they gotta know what's flying around when they're trying to do launches and when they've got astronauts. This is an open committee hearing, okay? China's watching. And we got this great opportunity that NASA has come out in support of today to add to this reauthorization. The Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It's the most violated NASA airspace in the country, despite being right next to a military launch facility. At the other end, we got Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia, also 100 miles from the nearest military installation. These are being left exposed. And obviously, Mr. Chairman, you know very well about the Johnson Space Center. So I'm introducing this amendment to give NASA the counter unmanned aircraft system authorities to protect their air traffic. Certainly, we're going to have the privacy components in here. We're going to have oversight. And there's also a little sunset component. But until we add this into this reauthorization of this remarkable bill that we've been working on for several terms now, I think we're selling these guys out, and we're giving our adversaries a leg up. And so I'm urging my colleagues, in the spirit of the traditional bipartisan nature of this committee, through the lens of China competition, certainly not something anyone doesn't want to have not taking seriously on their record. I certainly take China competition very seriously as a member of Congress from Michigan, so that we don't have these unmanned drones being undetected by NASA. Could you imagine all this work? You get ready for a launch, you're getting ready to go, and you can't even detect a drone. I mean, come on. This is NASA. This is the great space race. Let's win it. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I'm hoping you and this whole committee will join me in voting yay for this amendment.
I thank the representative from Michigan. She's very persuasive.
I also look for the watermarks. And so I do think it would be important to move this to a committed vote when we get to that moment in the debate, to send a signal to potential committees of jurisdiction and to send a signal that maybe we're not getting everything we need or want in this critical reauthorization. And this will be a footnote or a peg to continue to pursue the issue at hand.
So let me get this straight. Are you withdrawing the amendment, or you want to proceed?
I want to move it to a vote.
Okay,
Just as our water vote.
I got you. If there's no further discussion on the amendment, the
Recorded vote. Yeah.
recorded vote.
Recording
Yeah,
vote.
we'll do that. The question is on the adoption of the Stevens Amendment number 7. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not adopted.
We'll recorded.
We will do a recorded vote. It has been requested pursuant to Committee Rule 2F and House Rule 11. Proceedings on this vote will be postponed.
Now, it's funny, if you watch that whole thing, the main speaker there made an effort at least 2 or 3 times to try to get the Congresswoman Stewart to withdraw this amendment. And she wouldn't. So she forces it to a vote. And then when they go to have the vote, they go, okay, the speaker calls it for the nays. She says, I want a recorded vote. He goes, okay, no problem. Oh, because of this rule, we're delaying that. We'll do that some other time. But because Congress has to work, they actually did have to vote on this. And here's how it came out, which I think is really weird. Someone tell me why we would not want NASA to be able to detect unmanned aerial systems in and around launch facilities. What is the deal with all of the drone incursions on military bases and other sites of interest, energy plants? Why would we not want NASA to know that there are drones in its launch path? You can answer that question. You're a step above me, my friends, because I just don't understand it. And I also don't understand how it basically came down between, party lines. Yeah, the Democrats voting yay, and almost all the Republicans, I think all the Republicans from that picture there, voting nay. It's strange. Now NASA, well, I don't know if NASA, but policymakers decided we're going to go back to the moon. I think part of that is also we know China's up there on the far side of the moon, and we haven't been back there since 1969. So it's been a while. The mission for Artemis 2, you can see it mapped out here. But basically it's going to launch, jettison the boosters, blow the core stage, and this guy is going to fly out there, out to the moon. And I'm looking to see if we will actually land on the moon, but it doesn't look like it. It's like we're doing a flyby. So yeah, first crewed test flight to the moon since Apollo. So I guess they're just going to go there and come back. Boy, it seems a shame to go all that way and not be able to land. How many think this is actually a spy operation because we want to see what China's doing on the far side of the moon? I don't know. Interesting timing. Now, Artemis has not gone without its concerns. ABC News just did a piece, and it's not looking too great for really the crew. I think are the ones that I'm really concerned with. I'm not really concerned with, the folks that are safe back at home, but the actual crew, it sounds like, might have some concerns with this Artemis mission.
The Artemis 2 mission could launch as soon as next month.
The real stars of the show here, the Artemis 2 crew.
With 4 crew members, 3 Americans and a Canadian, set to complete the 10-day journey in the Orion spacecraft, more than 600,000 miles to the moon and back. But 2 veteran NASA scientists now tell ABC News they believe there are serious safety risks with the spacecraft.
I hope the mission is successful, but if there's another disaster like Challenger or Columbia, that's going to set us back years.
Daniel Rasky retired in December after working as an engineer specializing in thermal heat systems at NASA for more than 30 years. Charlie Camarda is a former director of engineering at NASA with decades of research experience and a retired astronaut who flew on the space shuttle.
Is this what you both expected to be doing, speaking out about in retirement?
No.
Their key concern centers on the Orion spacecraft's heat shield, a system designed to protect astronauts from the extreme heat when they re-enter the atmosphere. They say the heat shield uses a material from the 1960s that cracked during the uncrewed Artemis 1 test flight in 2022, a finding highlighted in a 2024 publicly released report by...
Like, why are we using a metal from the 60s? That makes no sense. We haven't innovated anything better in 60 years?
NASA's Inspector General that was reviewed by Rasky.
I have to say, from the data I've seen with regard to this heat shield, if I had to rate it A, B, C, D, I'd rate it an F.
You'd rate it an F.
It's an F. It's a clear F. Clear. And there's no way you put crew on an F heat shield. You are just tempting fate. It doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to fail. It means you're right on the edge of this cliff, and you don't know which way to move that could lead to a catastrophic development.
Rasky says there are better options available for the heat shield. He points to the material SpaceX uses on its Dragon spacecraft as far superior to the 6 decades old technology being used for Artemis 2.
We understand the limitations of the heat shield on Artemis 2, and it's incumbent upon us to fly within those limitations.
In a statement to ABC News, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman added, "After a thorough, independent, and data-driven review, I have full confidence in Orion's heat shield and in the team behind it. NASA engineers and safety experts followed the evidence, challenged every assumption, and applied disciplined engineering judgment to understand the anomaly and mitigate remaining risk."
Shock, a little bit of rage, because it wasn't just the same behaviors. These were the same people that were making the same bad predictions during Columbia and after Columbia.
Roles and responsibilities you want to divvy up as you go through the scenarios. So we encourage you to...
Man, like, I don't know why if you're NASA, why you are going to gamble like that. Is this a budgetary thing? Is this a workflow thing? Is it a pride thing? Like, I don't understand. If SpaceX has just flat out safer re-entry material, why are you going to gamble on 60-plus-year-old technology? And moreover, why hasn't NASA developed anything better in the last 60 years? What is going on? These cats were the tip of the spear. And now they're using 60-plus-year-old technology in a cutting-edge aerospace industry. You're going to gamble with astronauts' lives because what? Pride? I don't get it. Help me understand it, y'all. How is it okay for NASA to use a metal on the bottom of their re-entry vehicle that is known to have issues and could cost the life of every crew member on board? Why are they not willing to fix that? And this makes me think like, hey, maybe making sure that we don't have to throw the space station into the ocean might be a good idea too. While we're at it, let's just, I mean, this is crazy. Now, these astronauts here, they're not flying in that re-entry vehicle. They're using SpaceX technology. They're using the Dragon. And I just don't understand, if we have safer stuff, why we're not using it. I mean, aren't the astronauts supposed to be the priority? Crazy. If you go to drstephengreer.com, his website is full of data and information like we were discussing earlier. Just tons and tons of information. And, I get you're going to have different opinions about different people. Maybe you love him. Maybe he rubs you the wrong way. But I don't think that changes the information that is available. Now, I can't promote the CE5 thing and all that stuff. I've never tried it. I don't intend on trying it. But I know a lot of people do, and they say they have some pretty amazing things happen when they do, and they do it correctly. And I've seen actual photos from friends that have done this and captured things on film. And he's 100% right when he says we had hearings in the past, and they all end up the same way. You don't get anything concrete. Nothing ever gets done in Congress. Essentially, after a while, the drum beats die down, and the court of public opinion stops caring because they've got other things to do. And then you go another 20, 40 years before it comes up again. So it's just rinse, swipe, and repeat. I think that when the age of disclosure came out, if that changed your life, I think it's only fair to look at the other side of that. And the fact is, and this is a fact, that Dr. Greer was talking about reverse engineered vehicles and legacy UFO programs in the 90s. In the 90s. Just some food for thought. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for this one. I think we need to keep an eye. Oh, excuse me. I think we need to keep an eye on these cats. I don't know if it's bad management, bad leadership, just some key decision makers in there that are making bad decisions. But whoever needs to get the message about fix your re-entry vehicles materials, please do so before you have an international incident on your hands. In hearings. Probably somebody's going to do some jail time. Of course, I don't know. They let the Challenger shit go. Nobody really got in trouble for that. And let's not forget, I mean, this is a group of people that took in some pretty slimy characters back in the day. And kind of revere them today. Interesting. Well, that's going to do it for this UFO update. I will see you soon, my friends. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching the Gabriel Speaks podcast. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Really helps out the show and the algorithm and all that stuff. Y'all have a fantastic evening.